Well, the top of the morning to you, and welcome to It's a Good Life. I'm excited to be with you today. We're going to get you squared away on the money side of things. Now, before you jump to conclusions and you think, oh, Brian's going to roll out old Dave Ramsey again, let me say this. Dave has a protege, and she is amazing, and she has an amazing story, and she's the co-host of The Ramsey Show, and her name is Jade Warshaw. And she has been there, done that. She has gone through the wars with her own financial debt. Her and her husband, Sam, were musicians. Musicians aren't typically the best with money. And sure enough, as they're traveling around the world, they got themselves into $460,000 worth of debt. But they turned it around. They got after it. And in the tearing up of that debt and the restructuring their lives, not only has she become this Ramsey personality that is sitting next to Dave Ramsey on the show every day, but she's just come out with their first book, What No One Tells You About Money, and it just came out, and it's absolutely terrific, and there's some great stories in there, and also a lot of hope. You know, as we understand, Dave and I were hanging out together for a few days last year before Christmas, and I said, Dave, you're never going to be out of business because more people are in debt today than ever. The rates are higher, and the stakes are more than ever before. Jade, we're so happy to have you today and your unique perspective on this, a life well lived, and also that you've got great advice for people. So thanks for making time for us.
Well, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me on today.
And congrats on the new book. I'm sure you're in a whirlwind right now. When I go visit the Ramsey organization, they call it the car wash when there's all the different presentations to do. So I'm sure you're doing a bunch of media. So thanks for taking time.
Absolutely.
But let's kind of dive in. You know, I'd love to know a little bit about your background, how you ended up where you are today.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's a long story. If you want the whole thing, you have to read the book, What No One Tells You About Money. But, it started like so many other people. You know, my husband and I were college sweethearts in many ways. We met in college and we
Where'd
got
you go to
married.
school, by the way?
Tennessee State University.
Come on. All right.
Is where we ended up. And about a week after graduation, we got married. And that's when we realized that we had a lot of debt together, separately and now together. And so, we embarked on the journey that so many embark on, which is we need to pay this off and we need to get, our house in order. And that's kind of where it all started with the whole Dave Ramsey thing. I heard Dave Ramsey on the radio for the first time back, and I guess it would have been 2005 or 2006. And I remembered him. And so when it came time in 2008 to start paying off debt, I said to my husband, there's this guy on the radio who might be able to help us. I remember he has a plan. And so we started working the baby steps, and, the rest is history.
It's funny. This sounds strange. One of the things, because my kids are all in different phases of life now, getting married and having babies. And I just handed out, like, Total Money Makeover to me is kind of the non-negotiable. And I gave copies to all the couples. And it's like, they're like, Dad, you are something else. You giving us the budgeting books, But I'd love to kind of delve into your story a little bit because, you have this journey you've taken on. Talk to folks a little bit, because what I found about the money game is that people, when they're overwhelmed, it's like, well, one more drink on the Titanic's not going to do much, right? I'm 60 pounds overweight. One more piece of pizza is not going to make a difference. And it just seems to be when you're overwhelmed by debt, when you have this massive interest rates, and we know what the crazy interest rates are being charged today on credit card loans and car loans. How do you break through from the overwhelm, like, $460,000, and this is a number of years ago. It just seems like it's too big a mountain to climb. How do you get your head into getting after it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Overwhelm is a big deal. What you're really talking about is a sense of hopelessness, Brian, which is that feeling of looking at a situation and feeling like there's no way out. And I understand that, and I know that feeling very well. But at the end of the day, you have to embrace the fact that this is a journey. It's a way of life. And the tough part about that is the way society is today is I want everything now. Everything is a microwave. I go on Amazon. It's at my doorstep sometimes the very same day. If I want a meal, I can just DoorDash it. And even Netflix, right? Netflix, everything is curated exactly the way we want it. I flip on the TV, exactly what I want is there. But that's not really the way life operates. When you're really attempting to achieve something, you know that. It's a crock pot. It takes time. There are challenges, and endurance has to be part of the equation. There's just no getting around that. And I spend a lot of time talking about that with people. I spend a lot of time talking about longer timelines, because that really is the reality. And that's not it's not sexy, right? That's not a buzzword in today's society. Time, journey, that's not what anybody's talking about.
No.
But it is the reality, and it is the truth. If you're going to do anything worth having is worth the sacrifice it takes to get it. So if you're embarking on a journey with your money, you are going to have to embrace endurance. Full stop.
It's interesting. I just saw a survey from Strata, who do a lot of research, and we have a big research department here at our company, and it said that 66% of all people in the last 3 years who filed bankruptcy deeply regret doing it. And it was like, because the thought is, back to this timeline, the bankruptcy will make the pain go away. Like, because it's a quick, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm $460,000 in debt, I'm going to make the pain go away. I feel so bad, I want the pain go away. And here's the thing, they replace one pain with another pain. And a pain, by the way, that's very long term, as you well know. It's another 7 years, where you have this mark, not only on your credit, but on your lifestyle and everything else. And a lot of those people have regretted doing it. I mean, I know the baby steps backwards and forwards. I've taught them, I've trained them, I've lived them. But like, how did you guys start this process of chipping away at $460,000 debt? And how did you do it as a couple and stay married?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of combine the two thoughts. You talked about the bankruptcy and folks regretting it, and then it's like, well, how did you do it? The true line there is taking control. Because when you file bankruptcy, you're out of control. And you've now given control to somebody else to say, here's what your payment's going to be. Here's what you have to sell off. Here's what we're telling you have to do for the next countless amount of years, right? And no one likes being told what to do, especially in that type of situation. And so really the first step is you deciding, hey, I'm going to take control of this. And that's what Sam and I did. We looked at things, we got real and said, the truth is we made this mess. Even though there were outside factors that didn't help, right? It's so easy to look at your family and say, well, how could my parents let me sign up for this student loan debt? You can look at the government and say, I thought, Biden administration said they were going to forgive it and they never did, right? All these external forces. But at the end of the day, regardless if it was your fault or not, at the end of the day, you're the only one responsible for making your life right? Nobody's going to come and save you or give you a big apology. And we realized that. So the first step, just practically speaking, was looking at a math equation and saying, okay, here's the problem. We don't make a lot of money. When we first got married, we made $30,000 a year combined. That's a problem. All right. Especially when you have $460,000 of debt. So it was a math problem. And as simple as it might sound, there's really only two factors here when that happens. You can increase your income or you can decrease your expenses. That's the only thing you can do at that point. And so Sam and I's biggest focus was income. We have to build income. And I'm a Christ follower, and my first prayer was like, God, if you present the opportunity, I promise you I will do the work. So you got to do a lot of work. My husband and I worked, there's 52 weeks in a year. We spent 39 weeks at sea performing in order to make as much money as we could to pay off this debt. And it's a weird feeling to spend more time at sea than on land. You start to kind of lose yourself.
On a cruise ship doing the musical performances.
Yes. We worked so hard. And in between those, we did side hustles. And, every side hustle you could think of, Brian, we did it. And there's just no replacement for hard work and sacrifice against something like that.
Now, I got a chance to get a preview of the book, by the way, one of the benefits of being buddies with Dave. And I saw a story about a bunch of butt-naked people on a cruise ship. Can you talk about that? I know that made it into the book. Come on. Give us the goodies.
Listen, everybody loves me at a party. This is my party story because it's just wild. So we had an agent. The agent would contact us. She would get the bookings for us. And usually the email would look something like, hey, can you join Princess Cruises, on this 7-day cruise? Yes, we can. So the email would just come through. And we would say yes to it because it was money at the other end. So like any other email, the email came through, hey, can you join this particular cruise in March? We said yes. And so usually what we would do is go and look up the itinerary because that was the perk. You get to go to the Bahamas or go to, French Riviera or wherever. So I'm looking online. I can't find it anywhere. Where is this cruise? It wasn't listed. So a week before we were to join, I looked again and I saw a hint. It said it was a charter cruise. I said, okay, that makes sense. That's why it's not out there in the ether with everything else. And a couple of days before, I said, let me just check again. And I saw not only was it a charter cruise, but it was chartered by a nudist community called Bare Necessities. And I was like, what does this mean? What are you telling me here? And I found out very quickly what that meant. We get on board. The moment we got on board, I said, oh, this is different. This right here, 3,000 people, Brian, completely naked.
No.
3,000. And can I just be clear? These are not the folks that you want to see naked, okay? This is not what you might be thinking.
So you're wearing the Ray Charles dark glasses for a week on the cruise?
Oh, let me tell you. Personal space has a completely new meaning. It's like getting on an elevator. It's okay when everybody's in their business attire, but when you're not, you stand over there and I will stand over here.
Oh my gosh, that is wild. By the way, what kind of music did you guys do? Were you the singer? Were you the musician? How did that work with Sam?
Yeah, my husband, he's a bass player and he's a piano player. And for years, I worked as basically a Whitney Houston impersonator. That's what I did.
Oh, wow.
I did a tribute to Whitney Houston for almost a decade.
Oh,
and
wow.
Somehow Dave Ramsey convinced me to let it go.
It's the next logical step, in doing Whitney Houston to going to Dave Ramsey. You must have a set of pipes to try to do her work.
I did my best.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It was a hit.
That is awesome. That's just, I needed that today. So I'm trying to move on, but I'm stuck on this. I'm stuck on the naked charter. And here's the deal. If you can start there and end up where you are today, there's hope for the world, right?
That's right. There's hope for the world. The moral of the story is do whatever you have to do, short of sin in order to pay off the debt.
Yeah, well, they didn't ask you guys to get naked, so that's good.
That's right.
Hey, it's Anna Buffini. You just heard Jade used to be a Whitney Houston impersonator, so I thought it'd be fun if we got them to play Name That Tune and actually sing a little bit. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode.
So let's talk about it, right? So you increase the income. How do you go about the conversations? I've kind of, my wife and I are 35 years married, and we always had this deal. I'll make the living, you make the living good, right? And we've been able to do well, and we have, budgets and structures and whatever else. But even with us, there's times some of the conversation is touchy. Mm-hmm. And so when you start to do the budgeting process and when you start to talk about making cuts, right? Sometimes somebody comes to the relationship, they brought the student loans and the other one doesn't. How do you get through the difficult conversation about those things that need to be cut without making people feel judged or beat up or so on and so forth? Because you often have in a relationship, one's a spender, one's a saver, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, how do you go about doing the carefrontation is what I call it.
Carefrontation. I actually really like that. Well, number one, there's no getting around it. I think that's the biggest thing to start with. We know that money fights and money problems are among the top. It varies between it being number one or the number two cause of divorce, basically. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that going into it is a big one. And I did know that. I knew that money was a huge source of tension for couples. I saw it growing up. And so going into it, I knew, okay, Sam and I, we've got to be really aligned on this because this has the potential to really make us or break us. That's thing one. And then thing two is conflict is good. Conflict done right is a good thing because it's just... It furthers that process of getting aligned, right? You're saying your point of view, I'm saying mine, we're meeting in the middle. Now, in the beginning, I'll be honest, I was not good at that. In the beginning, I'm a person, my personality doesn't mind confrontation. My personality is boisterous, and I tend to ask questions loudly, which some people can think is me yelling at them or being too firm.
Perfect for the radio business.
Perfect for the radio business. But my husband, he's a lot more even, a lot more sensitive. And so in the beginning, it was kind of like, hey, cool out. you're being combative, or this is too strong. And I noticed that if I would ask him a direct question, how much are your student loans? For him, because he felt shame around that, it was kind of reason to go into go into his shell. And so, yeah, in those times, if you're in a relationship, especially if you're married and you're combining money, taking those notes and realizing, okay, what am I doing? And I think that's the key. Make it more about what you're doing and what we're doing, and less about here's what you did. Here's your problem. Here's what I need you to do. Nobody likes that. But if I can say, I'm just seeking to get aligned with you. Can you let me know, what are some things that we could do to get on the same page, right? Using that sort of language, I and we language, is so much better than you. Because then that person feels attacked. They feel like they're the problem. And so I would suggest that these conversations need to happen early and often. A lot of times people think it's just going to be this one and done light switch.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. Things with your spouse, a lot of times it's a ball of thread that takes a long time to unwind. And when we're talking about something as important as money, it can take a long time to get on the same page.
Sunday nights for my bride and I, first 10 years of our marriage, we went over our calendar, our goals, and our finances.
That's right.
We did that for 10 years. And sometimes in the early part, it was challenging. It was difficult. Especially as we turned our own finances around. So again, Dave and I, brothers from a different mother, but we'll have different approaches to certain things to get to the same end result. So I'm just curious about you. So someone's got some debt. Some are higher interest rates, some are lower amounts. And the conversation is often about which ones do I attack. I've promoted in the past, because I'm a big believer in the psychology of success, that I've encouraged people to pay off the lower amount debts to get some momentum. And so there's debate on that. I mean, the more practical approach is to go after the higher interest rates and chip away. Where do you come down on that side?
I come down on the smaller amount. And by amount, I don't mean monthly payment. I mean grand total. So if we're listing the debts in full, smallest to largest. So instead of saying, well, my car payment's $300, that's fine. I'm not talking about the payment. I'm talking about what you owe, $30,000. So in order, smallest to largest by the grand total. And like you said, it's not conventional in the way that you would think, well, Jade, shouldn't we do it by interest rate, or shouldn't we do it by monthly payment? But truly we have found, and it's been proven, that people tend to stick to it longer. So on this, I kind of just rely on science. People tend to stick to the process when they list the debt smallest to largest, because what you do end up getting is small wins quickly. If I have an $800 medical debt, yeah, it might feel insignificant, especially if the payment has been, $32 or $130, something like that. But once it's gone forever. And when I once had 7 debts listed, now I only have 6. And your brain picks up on that. And so the more often that we can get that hit of dopamine that says, hey, good job, I felt that, the more likely we're going to seek it out and continue the process.
It's interesting. Obviously we're a coaching company, and that approach is what we've done for 30 years, because what people need, I believe, to continue on with momentum and hope is a win. And we do have this need for not instant gratification, but some kind of gratification. And when you get that win, you get momentum. And when you get momentum, a little bit of confidence comes with it. And that is every aspect. That's how we coach people in their business, and that's how we help people transform their businesses that way. But I also believe it's the way you transform your finances and do the debt. So that's great to hear.
You're shortening the feedback loop, which is one of the reasons that I'm such a proponent, especially if you do have a longer timeline. It took Sam and I 7.5 years to just pay off the debt. Forget saving, 3 to 6 months of expenses and buying a house and all that. That was a grand total of 11 years. But that feedback loop being shortened is so important. That's why I say to people, hey, you gotta have rewards built in. You gotta have milestones built in that say, when I achieve this smaller micro goal, I reward myself, or I tell myself good job, or I have these things built in to where I can keep feeling that success, because it's like a diet. If you've ever committed to a diet, right, and it's like you've just killed yourself, you don't eat any sugar, and then you step on the scale, 6 weeks later and it hasn't moved, you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And all you're doing is stepping on the scale. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to measure this by inches, and I'm going to measure this by days that I've gone to the gym consecutively, not just the scale, suddenly there's other ways that you can feel success, and there's smaller ways that you can measure it along the way so that you can feel, okay, I am making progress. Progress looks different, and I can see it in all the different ways.
Right. Look, it's universal principles of success and routines and processes where the wins happen, and then the outcomes come later. In fact, you have 5 areas of focus on in the book, What No One Tells You About Money, that keep us running. I'd love you to kind of go through those 5 areas, if you would.
Yeah, so, money is a complex topic, and it really has 3 parts to it. But what I observed is that people really only talk about 2. Obviously, you talk about money, numbers and math. That's the major component that you hear. What do I do with my money? What are the equations? What are the, how much do I need? What are the amounts, Jade? Okay, yes, money is part of it. The other area you hear is behavior, right? What are the behaviors that I must have? Well, you need to be somebody who saves. You need to be somebody who, doesn't emotionally spend. All of these different behaviors. But what people don't talk about, and which is why I wrote this book, because it was an experience I had that wasn't out there, is money is completely emotional. When you think about what it's tied to your career. It touches your relationships. It's tied to your recollections of the past, right? How did your mom treat your dad? How did your boyfriend mistreat you? What happened that time where you felt that you were near homelessness? Like all these different traumas in our life, they're connected to our money. And so what happens is then you come to a point of time, you say, I could use a little help with this. And you listen to somebody like me, or you listen to somebody like Dave, and they give you a directive and say something along the lines of, well, you need to live on less than you make. You need Dave's famous words, you don't need to see the inside of a restaurant unless you're working at one, right? And suddenly we're wondering, why do we want to throw our radio across the room? Why are we getting mad? And it's because it touched on something that's very emotional to you. Well, when I was a kid, we never went out to eat because my mom was a single mom and there was never food in the house. How could he tell me not to go out to eat? That is an emotional response.
Right.
That has nothing to do with math or behavior, right? It's the same thing. Whenever my husband talks about this, I get so mad and it turns into an argument. Before you know it, we're standing in the kitchen arguing, right?
Right.
Those are emotional responses, and nobody's talking about that. And so in the book, I go through 5 of the main ones that we find. I do webinars here all the time, and people come on and we take surveys and we say, tell us the main emotions you're feeling on money. And time again, it comes up: fear, stress, guilt, shame, frustration, right? And so that's what I'm talking about in the book. It really is a diagnostic on what does it look like, because these things often run in the background and we're not really aware of it. It's like a ticker tape. We don't even know that it's happening, but it's there and it's affecting us. And so I help you see it.
I think it's fabulous that you have spent so much time addressing the emotional piece of this. I'll tell you a neat little story. I'll try not to take too long with it, but here I am. Here's a little white Irish boy growing up on the south side of Dublin. He marries an African-American gal who grows up in Sumter, South Carolina. We get married. We bought a home. Bev moves into it. We get married. I move in. Our first day together, we go grocery shopping, right? You're just on your honeymoon. We go grocery shopping. Paper or plastic? Beverly goes, oh, paper, please. Okay. Didn't know that about you. And so we get the paper bags. We get home, and I watch her. And she folds up the paper bags into these tiny little packets and then stuffs them in the gap between the refrigerator and the wall. And I'm like, so I say, that looks odd. Now, most men can't tell you when their honeymoon ended, and then there's some of us who can. My wife, who's the most level-headed, easygoing, Olympic volleyball playing champion, like the cool as the other side of the pillow type person. I see her visibly, almost tears in her eyes. And I'm like, what happened? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, we're brand newlyweds and we can't talk about brown paper sacks.
Uh-huh.
Well, 6 weeks later, there's a family reunion in Sumter. And I go down to Sally Bell Krosky's house, her grandma. And I go into her kitchen. And there is brown paper bags around that refrigerator going back to the Civil War.
Oh,
okay, she has every... And I went, aha. When I told her about those brown paper bags, what she heard from me was, you weren't raised right.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talked about it early on in our marriage, I thought, man, if we have difference of opinion on brown paper, we might definitely have difference of opinion on green paper. I was raised by a self-employed house painter. She was raised by an Air Force vet. He got the paycheck every 2 weeks, wore the same uniform every day. They took their vacations on the same dates every year. And my dad was a house painter. When are you getting paid, George? I don't know. And so I thought, when you have the brown paper bag, like that's how she was raised. And it was not part of my lexicon. And it translates that way then to the money. Talk a little bit about family of origin stuff, because, you know, my bride and I were married 2 worlds away, and we had to find our way to do money that wasn't my mom and dad's way or wasn't her mom and dad's way. But that's a huge piece, because this is how we do it here. Everybody believes their family's right, even if they're broke.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, man, that right there was poignant. It's true. The way you grow up obviously feeds into how you view money, and not just money, but how you view life in general. And like I said, it all touches. And I think that's important to note, because you get to decide if you're going to learn from it, if you're going to keep it the same, if you're going to change it, right? That's your choice to make. And the way I would sum that up is, you know, let me just speak from my personal experience, because that's the one I know. You know, when I grew up, my dad was a football coach, and so we moved around a lot. But I was born in Washington State, then we moved to Oregon, then we moved to Kansas, then we moved to Illinois, then we moved to Tennessee, then I moved to Florida, then back to Tennessee. Okay, so around a lot. But most of my, young years were spent in a neighborhood that was all white communities. Matter of fact, most of the time I was the only Black kid in my class, and many times in my entire school. And so what happened there for me was very interesting, because my dad made a good living, but he came from, if you don't need it, you don't buy it. We only buy what we need. So as a result, we kind of grew up. I never had, you got one pair of shoes, you have one church dress. There wasn't a lot of extras. Combine that with always being the new kid, being the new kid who was the only Black kid. I found very early, I have to prove myself. I want to prove myself. I want to prove that I can fit in. And as I got older, that turned into, I have to present myself well to prove that I can be in these spaces. And then that turned into, well, if I can't afford to do it, I can put on a credit card. See what I'm saying? So doing the work to figure out, where do these behaviors come from? Why do I feel like, why was it emotional for me to cut up that credit card? Why was it emotional when I realized, hey, with Sam, if we want to get out of debt, there's certain things I'm used to purchasing. I get my nails done. I get my hair done. I spend a lot on my appearance. Why does it bother you so much, Jade? Now I know why. I know why, because that was my shield to be able to fit in. That was my shield to be able to be part of these spaces. And so understanding that, to your point, is so, so important. But let me make this point. A good reason, let me say it like this, a good reason can very quickly become a bad excuse. And many of us have very good reasons. Oh, I'm like that because I got burned by my divorce. I'm like that because my last job. I'm like that because when COVID happened, right? We have a very good reason. But if we don't work through it and let it pass through, then it becomes a bad excuse. And you're now 10 years later, still broke, still living paycheck to paycheck, still quoting the same reason. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it behooves us to work through these things and figure out why, so we can start to make changes. We can change. We're very adaptable as human beings.
Well, we have to stop listening to our story if we want to change our story. And you definitely did that. And here you are, singing on naked cruise ship lines with the Whitney Houston voice, with the gal who needed to, spend a lot of her appearance, to being the co-host of the Dave Ramsey Show, because you changed your own life, and because out of that experience you become a person of substance who can speak to this. And I love the fact that you speak the way you do, and it's a different flavor than even how Dave does his thing, but the same principles. What no one tells you about money is great, because someone is now telling us about that. I'm so excited for this book. Let me ask you this: what do you hope someone who reads this book is going to come away with?
I hope they come away knowing, first off, that this is normal, right? There needs to be a little bit of empathy there.
Sure.
to understand, hey, everything's not a light switch. Changing your life, changing your behavior, certainly changing your money, it's not a light switch. This is a process, and it's okay that you have some things to work through. We all do. And you'll find that the book is mainly story driven. I'm going through my entire story as I'm teaching other folks to change theirs. Like, that's the whole point. And so I want people to feel that empathy, and I want them to know, hey, you're not alone. If I could do it, and I know it sounds trite, but it's true. If I could do it, you can do it. Again, I came from small towns. I don't have some crazy education that's, in the rafters. Just I'm a normal person. I'm just like you. And I just said, you know what? Something's got to change. My husband said, you know what? Something's got to change. And if you make, success is just choosing to make the right decision one time, and then another time, and then another time. It's just righting those wrongs little by little. And I would love for those folks to understand, hey, I can identify this. I can solve this problem. It's not something that is hopeless. It's something that I can actually get ahead of. And if I'm willing to commit to the journey, I can see success on the other side.
Beautiful. Well, we can no longer say what no one tells you about money because someone did. And her name is Jade Warshaw, and she did a great job doing it. Jade, every time I do this podcast, we've done it for 10 years. We've had everyone you can imagine on the show. I ask 5 basic questions just to kind of gives us a little different perspective and insight into who you are. And so I'd love to kind of drop these on you a little bit. So here's number 1. What's the single best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Preparation is a gift you give yourself.
Who gave you that advice?
My pastor. So
Nice.
his name is David Hughes, just a great guy. And he used to say that all the time. Preparation is a gift you give yourself. And as a person who's in entertainment, it's spot on, especially in the work I do now. It's spot on. So that would be my number 1.
Words to live by. What's the one talent or gift you wish you possessed that you currently don't? I've asked that question to thousands of people, and they all say, I would like to sing on stage. You already have that. So what's the one gift you wish you could have?
Either drums or electric guitar.
Nice.
It depends on what song I'm listening to.
Here's the thing. It goes to show you, right? Rappers want to be ballers, and ballers want to be rappers. The singers want to play, and the players want to sing. So
Yes.
It's always the same. What book has been most instrumental in your life?
Ooh, this is so nerdy. Well, there's 2. The first one that came to mind is called The China Study. I'm a plant-based eater. It's all about
Nice.
diet.
Yeah.
So
My
The
wife's
China Study,
read that book, yeah?
You've read it?
Beverly and me. Yep.
Oh, so good. So that's number 1. And then let me just say, the Bible is great.
Yep,
Check it out.
That's good. All right. What movie do you watch over and over again? Whenever it's on, you stop. What's the one that gets you?
Field of Dreams.
Come on, let's go.
If you build
Let's
it, he
go.
will come.
Well, you just built this new book, and we're hoping all these people are going to come and participate in that. Last but not least, Jade Warshaw, what does the good life mean to you?
Ooh, the good life is a rich and satisfying life. I'm going with John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Sounds a lot like debt, but I've come that they would have a rich and satisfying life.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show here today. You're a gift. You're a joy. I think it's I like the fact that you're helping so many people through this process. It is very overwhelming when people are in debt, and it's the feelings that are most overwhelming. And I love the fact that you've addressed it in What No One Tells You About Money, and I think you're going to help a lot of people with it. And so bless you for that.
Okay, we are going to play a quick game. It's basically going to be, I'm going to read off lyrics off of the playlist that you and your husband, songs that you put on there that you made that got you through your journey, your debt-free journey.
I already
Do you
know. I
remember?
know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I
so-
love this game.
Okay, amazing.
I love this game. This is right up my alley.
So Dad, basically she has a playlist of songs her and her husband used to get through her journey, getting debt free. And so I'm going to start saying the lyric, and then you two are going to compete to who can sing the song first.
Oh,
Got
my
it.
goodness. All right, here we go. Here we go.
Okay. Okay. So we'll start. Do you want me to say the artist first, or do you want to start harder where I don't say the artist and I just start with the lyrics?
If you say the artist, I'm going to know it lickety split.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I mean,
so
I am outgunned and outmatched on every front here, but here's what I'll do. If she starts, I'm going to chorus in with her. How's that?
All right. I've had my eyes on you ever since you walked in the room.
I had my eyes on you Ever since you walked in the room. Prince.
You want me to compete with Whitney Houston standing? What is going on here? All right, let's go.
Okay, Dad, you know this one. Think. I'm going to try and osmosis this one to you. All right. I'm gonna make a change for once in my
life.
Yeah.
Gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right. Come on.
Love
Let's
it.
go.
Man in the Mirror. I know that one.
Yes.
Not sure I sung it in tune, but that's okay.
You did good. I was impressed.
Dad, you know this one. It is the night. My body's weak.
Ooh.
Gonna
it
run.
is the night.
No time to
Right like
sleep.
the wind.
Yep.
That's it.
Yes, Christopher
Gonna
Cross.
ride like the wind till I'm free again. That's a good debt-free song. I like
That's a
that.
good one, isn't it?
Yep. Christopher Cross. Everybody my age knows Christopher Cross.
What's that say about me?
Yeah. It means you sang on cruise ships to people of my age. That's what that means.
Oh, boy. It's so good.
All right, 2 more. We can boogie down, down, up on down.
Oh, yeah. Let's Groove. Earth, Wind, and
Yep.
Fire.
Oh,
Yep.
man. Now, I have
Let's
spoken,
groove
just so you know,
tonight.
on 2 occasions, I've had Earth, Wind, and Fire where once I spoke before him and once I spoke after him. Now, there was a 10-year gap, and it went from, because I was the biggest Philip Bailey fan, and they went from Earth, Wind, and Fire to kind of Dirt, Puff, and Smoke. Okay, I just got to say, by the time, 10 years later, man, those boys, I'm like, you boys need to hang it up. Like, you've been doing it a long time.
Oh, boy, you're not wrong.
True.
It got rough.
Yep.
All right, last one. You have to answer this one in song. And when the night falls.
My lonely heart
Lonely
calls.
heart calls. Yeah.
Okay. Did you see the difference there? Real estate trainer, Whitney Houston, singer.
You got it. Great job. I
Yeah.
think it's
I want to
time.
dance with somebody. I like that. That'll
There
work
you
for me.
go. Yeah, you get to sing that part. That's the hard
Yeah.
part.
Yep, that's great.
Awesome.
Wow,
You
so
guys
cool.
killed it. Thank you.
So
Great.
fun.
There you go, Jade. Well, here's the thing. I'll say this. You won't have another interview like that today.
This is the best kind. So good. Thank you, Anna. That was so fun.
Jade, for 10 years and however many millions of downloads we've had, my mother always said a little Irish blessing that we recorded. She passed just a few months ago. So I continue on the tradition for now. So I'll leave us both with this today. May the roads rise up to meet you, and may the wind always be at your back. May the rain fall soft upon your fields and the sunshine warm upon your face. And until we meet again, may God hold us all in the hollow of his hand. We'll see you next time.